This is Prince William County. You can see Prince William has grown a lot, basically with the growth taking off after 1980 to the point where there's about over 350,000 people in the county now. And the growth rate has been averaging about 4% a year, which is quite healthy. It gets you it doubles your population in about 15 years. The Hispanic population really grew. For basically the last 15 years or so, it's been growing by about 10% a year. So it went from about 10,000 to almost 70,000, according to the latest estimates. And this is, to my mind, these numbers are the single numbers that explain a lot of what's been happening, a lot of the reaction. In 1990, there were 4.5% of the county's population was Latino. That doubled between 90 and 2000, and it's doubled again in the last, and this is only 6 years worth of data, to the point where about 20% of the county is now made up of Latinos. This is the proportion of the county's population that consists of immigrants, going from about 4% in 1980 to about 12% in 2000 and about 22%. Again, doubling within about a 6-year period. The 11.8% was about the national average at the time. It's now up to about 13 or 14, as well as 12%. So you can see that the county has sort of shot past the national composition. This looks at the families of the immigrants. So it's the immigrants and their families. And they constitute almost a third of the county's population. The majority of children of immigrants are U.S. citizens. That's true of both legal and unauthorized migrants. And so when you take into account these households, you get an even larger share of the county's population. Well, who are they? They're mainly in families. They're relatively young, and almost all of them are working or trying to work. The labor force participation rate for immigrants, for immigrant men, is a bit higher than labor force participation rate for native-born men. They have relatively low levels of education. The jobs reflect that. They have relatively low incomes because of the kinds of work that they can get. And like I said, they're drawn largely to these areas by the availability of jobs. Labor force participation is in this county, labor force participation is quite high for pretty much everybody, but the immigrants have slightly higher rates than the natives. Immigrants do pay taxes. They don't pay quite the proportionate share that they represent of the population. That's because their incomes aren't quite a proportionate share, and not all of the undocumented immigrants pay their share of taxes. A lot of them do, but not all of them. Our estimates were that immigrants represented about 16% of the adult population in 2000, and they paid about 13% of the taxes. Most of these taxes went to the federal government, and then after that, another big chunk went to the state government. Very little of it went to the county. Immigrants do affect the schools. Most of their kids, as I said, are native, but they represent, and I'll show you, an increasing share of the school's population. One of the topics that I get asked about, and you directed me to some interesting data, I put together a data series on official crime statistics, and the violent crime numerically is up slightly over a 10-year period. The property crimes are down a bit, trending downward anyway. If we put this together with the rapidly growing population, the crime rate has been dropping fairly consistently for the last 10 years, and even shows a drop over the last 6 years. This isn't immigrants per se, it's Hispanics, but as we've seen, this is driven by immigration. One of the big impacts on local areas of immigrants and of growing Latino populations in the schools, and you can see here a really dramatic change in a very short period of time. According to the 93-94 school year data, 5% of the students in the county were Hispanic. That doubled by 2000, and it's more than doubled since then, to the point where about a quarter of the students in the schools are Hispanic. This looks at the foreign-born population, and there's been a real shift here. A growing share of the foreign-born population is Latino, meaning that most of the immigrants coming in, and you can really see it shifted a lot between 1990 and 2000. In 1990, only a quarter of what was a much smaller immigrant population was Latino. It's up to 3/4 now. That's also a much bigger share than any of the surrounding areas. So, major demographic changes are underway. The numbers seem to keep going up. Prince William County is part of these emerging trends. Whether this trend will continue in the face of some of the virulent opposition to immigration, I think we'll have to see. And they're certainly having an impact here. They pay taxes, they work, and they're present in the schools. Again, a lot are undocumented. My data don't really permit me to separate that out, but a lot of the undocumented immigrants have children nationally. About 2/3 of their children are U.S. natives. So,
thank you very much.